third and final country today, and yeah, Fiji. Starting off with history as usual, the archaeological evidence suggests that Fiji has been inhabited initially by Melanesian peoples for more than 3,500 years, as the first known contacts with Europeans occurred in 1643 and when the islands of Vanuatu and Taveuni explored by Abel Tasman. British explorers included Captains James Cook and William Bligh passed through in the late 18th century. By this time the population was mixed, with Melanesian occupying the eastern areas and the Polynesians islands organised into a complex hierarchical society. As the first American ships arrived in the 19th century, being adventurers attracted by the resources of sandalwood, which was exhausted in 10 years, and subsequently traders from Christian missionaries. Later Europeans began establishing cotton plantations but came into conflict with the Fijians over land, political power and the use of imported labour. As the increasing availability of guns caused inter-tribal conflicts to escalate, but by the mid-19th century a single clan dominated, led by Nalivilo and subsequently by his son Kakobau, and based on the small island of Bau to the southeast of Viti Levu. Said person doesn't go football anymore. And the Bauan dialect, the Fijian, consequently became the predominant Fijian language. An important factor of unifying the clans. Kakobau converted to Methodist Christianity in 1854. In 1874, the British concerns over interest of the settlers. Kakobau agreed that Fiji should become a crown colony, and in 1881, Rotuma Islands in North Fiji, inhabited by Polynesian people, was added to his territory. And the first governor, Sir Arthur Gordon, collaborated with local chiefs to protect the traditional ways of life, as he forbade the sale of land to non-Fijians, levied tax in kind and retaining existing political structures, and he also encouraged the growth of the sugar industry and the use of Indian labour. And in the 1920s, Indians began to call for more commercial and political influence. And by 1943, despite the restrictions on land ownership, they were in the majority. As the country progressed towards independence throughout the 1960s, largely in response to international and British pressure, while internally there were divisions over appropriate forms of government able to provide democracy or protecting the rights of the ethnic Fijians, and the resulting constitution offered universal suffrage, which guarantees the Fijian land rights and Fijian chiefs, though the dominance of the Senate had in effect a veto of constitutional change, as Fiji became independent on the 10th of October 1970. Until 1987, the government was formed by the Alliance Party, led by Rasiwa chief Kamise Mara, which followed policies of moderate multiculturalism. As the largest Indo-Fijian party, the National Federation Party, NFP, formed to maintain opposition, and most of the period calls for Indo-Fijians for greater political and property rights increased. as the elections in 1987 resulted in the victory of a coalition consisting of the FNP and Fiji Labour Party, FLP, led by Dr. Timothy Bavadra, and supported both ethnic Fijian and Indo-Fijian trades unions. Bavadra, an ethnic Fijian, became Prime Minister, but there were Indo-Fijian majorities in both the Houses of Parliament, representatives and the Cabinet. Getting annoyed as it's a bit enrolled back at uni and all, so I'm getting back into that mind frame. In May 1987, the government was overthrown by a coup led by Lieutenant Colonel Sitiveni Rabuka, who called for an ethnic Fijian dominance of all future governments. And in May 1987, the coup was followed by a period of racial unrest, during which a Great Council of Chiefs attempted to introduce constitutional reforms mediated by the Governor-General Ratu Penaya Ganilao. Negotiations between Mara and Bavadra resulted in the formation of an interim government of unity. However, Rabuka led a second coup in September of 1987, and in October he declared Fiji a republic, having become a republic. It was then required to apply for membership of the Commonwealth, and their summit in Vancouver in October of 1987, as the Commonwealth heads of government decided to allow its membership to lapse, primarily on the grounds that Fiji had adopted a form of governance at variance with a democratically expressed wish of the people under the Commonwealth principles. In December 1987, Rabuka appointed a new civilian governor, with Mara as Prime Minister and Ganilao as President. Between 1988 and 1990, a new constitution was drawn up and approved by the Great Council of Chiefs, but the National Federation Party, Fiji Labour Party coalition, announced it would boycott any elections held under its provisions. The constitution was also the subject to international criticism, especially from the Commonwealth led by India, Australia and New Zealand, as Fiji resumed its membership of the Commonwealth in October 1997, as the new 1997 constitution came into force in July 1998. As elections in May 1999, the incumbent Fijian political party, SVT, only 8 of the 71 seats in the lower house, and the NFP with no seats were ousted by a coalition led by the FLP with 37 seats, and that included the Fijian Association led by a party with 10, the National Party of National Unity with 4, and the recently formed Christian Democratic Alliance with 3, as the turnout was high in these elections where voting was compulsory. Following his victory, FLP leader Mahendra Chaudhry became the first Indo-Fijian Prime Minister, and despite his party's overall majority in the House of Representatives, he formed a cabinet representing all 4 coalition partners, and his priorities were to defuse ethnic tensions and to restore economic growth after the sharp contractions from 1997 to 1999. But soon after the elections, Rabuka resigned from the leadership of the SVT, and in May 2000, armed ethnic Fijians led by George Spate overthrew the government, occupying the parliament building and taking out 40 hostages, including the Prime Minister, and then ensured continuous negotiations between the army and the rebels, until the deadlock was finally broken in July when hostages were released and the new civilian presidents and emergency government were appointed and backed by the military. In June, the country was suspended from the councils of the Commonwealth pending the restoration of democracy. And in July, Spate, when some of his supporters were arrested and charged with treason. So yeah, it's kind of gone quieter from there, no? So I'm assuming everything's back to normal. And moving on to language, Fiji's population is nearly homogeneous and made up almost entirely of native Fijians till the late 19th century, as indigenous Fijians were of Melanesian and Polynesian descent. They spoke languages of a Malayo-Polynesian family of languages, commonly known as the Fijian language. When Fiji came under British colonial rule, contract workers from other British colony, India, were brought to Fiji, and the presence of British colonial power popularised the English language in the country, and the presence of Indian workers introduced the Indian language, or Hindi, to the country. And English was the first introduced to Fiji by British explorers and merchants who arrived in the country decades before the establishment of a colonial rule in the country, as English served as a lingua franca in the country between the British settlers and the indigenous Fijians, and as gradually the language evolved into Fiji throughout the years, and the number of situational varieties of the language developed in the country, as a formal variant of the proper English is used on formal occasions and resemble English spoken in the UK and in Australia. And the variant is also popular among the older population of the country who lived during colonial times, as a more laid-back variant of English is spoken during informal occasions like in churches, workplaces and schools, so on and so forth. And involves the integration of English with some Hindi or Fijian words, with local grammatical innovations, and the variant of English is properly known as Finglish. And moving on to Fijian, it's an Austronesian language. Fijian is spoken by the indigenous inhabitants of Fiji, as the language of Fiji is about 300 first language speakers and nearly the same number of second language speakers. In the past, among the vast repertoire of native languages, the European missionaries chose the Bao dialect. The dominant language of the then politically significant island of Bao, to spread the missionary ideals among the natives of Fiji. Gradually the Bao dialect became more popular with other Fijian languages and soon became a standard communication between the natives residing in parts of Fiji. And over time, English, Hindi and other Fijian dialects contributed to the evolution of the Bauan dialect, so it became quite distinct from the original dialect adopted by the missionaries in the past. Then there's Fiji Hindi, which is the third and final official language. As British enforced, as mentioned before, British enforced Indian labours to Fiji during the colonial rule of Britain in India and Fiji. Soon the labourers settled down in Fiji, and the language they spoke came to be known as Fijian Hindustani, or Fijian Bhat. As Indians came from various parts of India and spoke several different dialects of Hindi, and these dialects go with English, Fijian and Arabic influenced Fijian Hindi. Moving on to the minority languages of Fiji. There are several minorities spoken by small sections of the Fijian population, as Rotuman is one of those languages, as the Austronesian language is spoken by the natives of the island of Rotuna, and there's about 2,000 speakers on the island, and about 10,000 more distributed in other parts of Fiji, as Gujarati, Punjabi, Tamil and Telugu are some of the other Indian languages spoken by the different sections of Indians at home. As Mandarin Chinese and Cantonese Chinese are two of the growing languages in Fiji, which are spoken by Chinese immigrants in the country, as well as Micronesian and Polynesian languages like Banaban, Tuvaluan, Tongan are spoken by small sections of the Fijian population. And then moving on to legends. To most people, the mention of Fiji kind of comes up with like a beautiful tourist destination, like honeymoons and romantic spots in South Pacific and all. And to a certain extent, it is true. Fiji has more history than tourist brochures that might mention, as Fiji consists of 300 islands and 500 islets, only about 110 are permanently inhabited, as 87% of the Fijians' population live on one of the two main islands, Viti Levu and Vanau Levu, and of these people, 3/4 live on the coast of Viti Levu. Everything Levu means island. Needless to say, for those looking for the true deserted tropical islands, fly away from the two islands, it might be a necessity, as the majority of the islands of Fiji are volcanically formed starting around 150 million years ago. And there are some geothermal activities on the eastern side of the archipelago and on the islands of Vanuatu and Taranui. As for a more stable visit to Fiji, the Asawa and Mamuka Islands on the western side of the archipelago have become favourites for tourists. And Fiji was settled in the 2nd millennium BC by Austronesians and later Melanesians, and also by some Polynesian influences. According to Fiji myth, giant war canoes from Tanganyika, a place north of Egypt, brought the first settlers to Fiji. As leaders of the sailors was a warrior chief named Lutuan and Asobasoba and his general Dege, and they sailed on a double-hulled canoe, Kawanituni. According to the legend, the armada was carrying a sacred relic called a Katon Imana, which in Fiji means box of blessings. As a Lutana Soba, his people set sail in search of a mythical island with bountiful seas, and which land created by the gods, where the chief's people would rest after years of wandering. After the ships got separated during the journey, but the rest made it to Fiji, and while trying to find safe passage into the waters of Fiji, sailors found the Mummy Passage, that is still used today by large ocean-going vessels, as around the islands of the Mana and Likuliku, the armada met with a storm. The high seas knocked the Katani Mana overboard, believing that it was the will of the gods. Lutun Soba told his people to leave it, and believe that the box is still there, protected by two giant clams. As Dege is told, return to the Mama Uka Islands later in his life to try and retrieve the Katan Imana, and he said he found the box and a large diamond just outside of it, and he took the diamond and it immediately turned into a serpent with a diamond pattern on its head, and is believed by some of what is cursed to live as a serpent forever, trapped in the Soa Lao caves in the Yasawa Island group. Speaking of Sawa-i-Lau caves in the north pass of Asawach Island chains, it is an amazing place to visit, as the locals call it distinct limestone island that rises to about 1,000 feet above sea level. The heart of Yasawa, and there are many legends that go along with the caves located within, as maybe connected to Denji, maybe something different altogether. The caves are said to be the resting place of Urtini, a legendary Fijian god. Urtini has 10 heads, one of which is human, and then the other 9 are serpents. As a human head is supposedly so beautiful that it is almost too much for any mortal to behold. As the Sawa-i-Lau caves are said to be the home of 2 fish named Demaleka and Damu Baravu, as well as an eel named Donu. As the 3 creatures are said to live in caves forever without ever having grown or changed. They are protected by the magic of the caves. Calling magical creatures aren't cup of tea, then the legend of Sawa-i-Lau that is a bit more down to earth, as the legend tells of a young chief who once hid his young love in the caves, and after her family threatened to marry her off to a rival chief, one day he would swim in the caves to bring her food, and he would bring her and swim to be with her until they eventually made an escape to another island, where they had a happily ever after. It's probably where the legend of Sawa-i-Lau pregnancy cave came from, as there's said to be a cave within the Sawa-i-Lau cave that any woman, regardless of her physical state, will be stuck in if she's hiding a pregnancy. And what other stories are waiting in the island of Fiji is who knows. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon. So yeah, bye for now.